Hi, you may have already noticed in the previous video that I use IrfanView to browse images. An incredibly useful program that I have been using for years. It offers a lot of features, many of which I don't even know. There are 8 key features, which I use in my daily work, and they save me a lot of time and energy. I will point out that this is not a paid advertisement and I do not have any remuneration for it. I just want to show you how much such a tool helps me in my work. The program is not free for commercial purposes, but we got a price of €10 for a license, which is very convenient. You can download it on the page IrfanView.com. The first of the key features of this program is browsing images without reduced image preview. This means that when I open some images, for example, in photos on Windows, especially if they are larger, I need to watch some small changes when quickly browsing images. So you can notice the flickering and flashes of different resolution there, i.e. because it is showing preview with lower resolution, and even the program often goes as far as displaying such a preview animation, which simply makes it impossible to work with for this purpose. But when you open such images in IrfanView, you always have them in full quality. It loads them very quickly and you can watch even very subtle changes in the images, the ones you need to see. When you install that program, there is one setting that I recommend you to toggle. At the end of the folder, as here for example, you notice that I have around 273 images here. When I get to the end of the folder, it shows me a window like this, where I can then choose which folder to display next. I can just press enter and continue in the current folder. But this bothers me a bit, and especially when I have fewer frames and it starts throwing out such a table, it disturbs me. So go to Options, Properties, then in the Browsing option. What is supposed to happen if I'm at the end of the folder? I switch to Loop Current Folder, which means that it will still show images from the current folder and will go over the same folder again and again without showing the annoying window. By the number down on the status bar, I will know if I have already saw entire folder, if necessary. Another key feature of this software for me is the ability to watch a certain part of the image while browsing all the images in the folder. For example, if I want to watch how this pin and this connector changes, I can zoom in directly on that pin. But in order to maintain the zoom and position, because you can see when I change image it returns back, I need to change the settings a bit. Namely, in the view, I have to turn off the image adjustment to the window. In the display options, window adjustment is now set, but I will make sure that the image is not adjusted. So, do not fit anything. I set the scroll position again, where I would like to have the view. Now in View, I will check the lock the zoom to keep the zoom setting, also View, keep scroll position. I have to set this to maintain the current position while browsing. And now with these arrows, while it no longer works directly with arrows on the keyboard, but with these arrows I can scroll through the images in the folder, and I can nicely watch how the image changes at that position. If I want to continue browsing as before, I turn on the window fit and I can turn off lock zoom and keep scroll position settings. There are also shortcuts for this, of course, so you can also use the keyboard. Another key feature of this program for me is the ability to sort images relatively easily. Let's say I have this simplified example, where I already have cutouts, but it could also be sorted on large images, where I just view such a cutout and go through the frames. You see 5, 6, 7, and now I have found some error or anomaly. It's blue, it should be white, so for example I can use F7 to move files or F8 to copy. You can set some predefined folders. You can see that I don't use it much, so that's why I don't have it set up, but if you would, you can then just choose the number on the keyboard where the image should go. I use a slightly different method that involves marking the images while browsing, So for example, in this case, when I want to get this image elsewhere, I press X and in the lower status bar I get this X marking. Another picture that I want to throw away or move elsewhere, hit X again. The next image is fine. Here, for example, I make a mistake that I marked this picture and it is not wrong, so I'll turn off this label via Shift X. This is another faulty snapshot. And this is how I go through the entire folder. This marking is only temporary, only in this instance of IrfanView. That is, if I close this window now, I will lose that information, so be a little careful not to, for example, press Escape and lose such markings. Now, pressing Shift Q, it will show me Irfan thumbnails, where it will show me all the tagged images and I can easily copy or move them to some other folder. For example, create subfolder. Select all images and simply drag and drop, which will make a copy of the images. Or while drag and drop, use Shift key to move them. On the video it is not visible, but the plus sign changes to minus when hitting Shift key. Be very careful not to click on any of the folders here with the left mouse button, because it will display the thumbnails of the images of that folder and you will lose marked images selection. You will lose the information, which images are marked. So when you create folders here or want to open a subfolder, always only through the plus. Or right-click on mouse. Do not left-click on these icons until you are finished with the selection. It has happened to me several times and I have lost a ton of time because of this mistake. It often happens that when sorting images or when labeling, I need to edit the image a bit to be able to decide whether it is okay or not. For example, I need to highlight some hard to see details. For example, here I would like to lighten up the center. And for that, I use a shortcut that opens it for me directly in my favorite editor, and then I just simply edit what I need to see in this zone, for example. The shortcut I use can be set in IrfanView. Options, Properties, Miscellaneous. And here, I have the option to set 3 shortcuts. The first is triggered via Shift 1, the second via Shift 2, the third via Shift 3. I have the first one set to the link for my GIMP, which I use most often for editing images, so all I have to do is selecting which X file you want to run. For other shortcuts I have some of my custom scripts, bat files. I'll explain why. Let's say I'm going through the pictures like this and wow, we don't have any production part here, we just have a blank image here. I need to find out where the picture is coming from. And instead of searching by name or looking in the folder where this anomaly actually occurred, I just need to press Shift to now and it will show me the image directly in Windows Explorer, its exact location in folder, and I can continue working with it. Let's say move it somewhere. I see where and in which folder this image was placed. Often when testing the program, I need the path to such an image to check how the program behaves, and for this I use my third shortcut for copying path to the clipboard. Hitting Shift 3 and I automatically have my path in the clipboard, and I can just paste it where I need. This script is nothing special, it is simply a notation where it takes the first parameter that it saves to the clipboard. So just write this to a file, then save it with the bat extension and set it up in Options, IrfanView. The script I use to display in Windows Explorer is also very simple. I've also used scripts that, for example, for labels from semantic segmentation in neural networks, showed me the original images that I had in another folder with the same name. It quickly displayed the associated original input image when I used the shortcut. Another great thing about IrfanView is the ability to make a cutout or copy part of an image. For example, if we want to send a colleague or customer a preview of some small portion of image, I mark the region, I hit Ctrl+C and I can paste it directly into an email or another program. And Irfan also shows the starting X and Y position of this region, and at the same time the width and height of this region, which is a perfect when need to use the information in other software or make batch cutouts. And if I want to process several such images and make, for example, only a cutout in this area, I can use file batch conversion and rename. I mark all the images I want to process, for example via Shift or Ctrl+A. Add them to the batch list, and choose in which output format the images will be saved. If I don't mind compression, I can use JPEG. When I turn on Use Advanced Options, I have the option to set, for example, cropping. And I can now set the cropping according to how I made the cutout on that image. I'll come back here. For example, I want to make cutouts of this screw, so I will mark the area. I see that I started at about 1500 by 1400 and 420 by 400. I'll use all the frames. And write 1500 by 1370 here. 420 by 420. I can also set different filters with this output image, or set new resolution by resizing options. I'll set up the output folder like this, for example, and I give a start batch and we process all the images. And I already have only the screw cutouts that I wanted. When opening the batch options, it remembers last settings used. I can even export these entire settings via Save Settings to make sure I can use them in future. So, I would be able to load them without having to type in them again. As you may have noticed, there is also a rename option, which I use for batch renaming the images. Here I have some options. I can set some pattern of the output image name, where $n means the old name without a suffix. And this is the designation of the digits that will be automatically filled in, defined by these counter settings with step increment. And we can also change the text in the original file name to the new text and simply other options. And then similarly, we can mark all the files we would like to rename, set path where the new files with the new name should go. We will hit Start Batch and it will rename these images accordingly. I also really like IrfanView's shortcut, I. I stands for info, that quickly shows me basic information about the image, so I can see its resolution. I can see the name, the path, the full path, also the color range. I can see how many unique colors, what is the size on the disk in memory, so I have all the basic information at hand. With Irfan, I've only come across one little thing so far, which I don't quite know how to deal with. It adjusts the scaling of TIFF format images values for better visualization on the display. But for example, images that are obvious. One is much brighter, the other much darker. They both will appear very similar on the screen, while it should be more like in the Photos program. Although, there is another problem with photos burning out a bit, but this is probably a more faithful representation of those values. I would like to have this in IrfanView. Maybe you can help me with it in the comments. I would be very happy to display it somehow, as it is showing in Windows Explorer. Otherwise, it is a perfect program for me that helps me a lot in my work. Good luck to you and have a nice day. See you in next video.